TCU lands a 4-star offensive lineman as Bernie tackle Logan Schram is headed to Fort Worth. We'll talk about the newest commit for the 2025 class and what it means for recruiting coming up next on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the YouTube channel or on your favorite podcast platform and make sure the show is coming to you each and every day. We're in the month of June now, which means we're going to change up our schedule a little bit. We're going 3 days a week through June and most likely July. It's technically off season for the Locked On College channel as we get ready for August, which will be coming up in a few months, and the start of fall camp and everything that comes with that. But still plenty of news around TCU athletics. And we're going to start today on the recruiting front. Going to be a very recruiting heavy show in regards to TCU as they continue to build this 2025 football class. They've been very active lately, and they landed one of their top targets, 4-star offensive lineman Logan Schram, a tackle from Bernie High School. Really good measurables on Logan. He's 6'6", 328 pounds. Interesting to kind of see where they feel like he'll fit at the next level. Right now he's playing tackle at Bernie. He's listed as an interior offensive lineman on a lot of recruiting sites. And with that size and that frame, I kind of see the vision there. But man, that tackle spot, having athletic guys on the outside who can pass block and get after it in the run game as well, is a huge advantage. So if you could turn into that cornerstone type of piece, that would be really beneficial for TCU. Logan has a great offer list, some heavy hitters like Texas A&M, Tennessee, Oklahoma. But the schools that he was down to, the final 3 schools that he was choosing between, Arkansas, Sam Pittman, their head coach, former O-lineman, puts a big emphasis on being good up front. And then he was also weighing his options between Arkansas, TCU, and Texas Tech. I think beating Texas Tech in recruiting battles is a big deal. And the new Big 12, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out because the conference is so spread out now. Currently, the Frogs are second in the Big 12. They're 16th overall in the nation with the addition of Logan to this class. But they're second to Arizona State in the Big 12. Now, Arizona State has 17 commits. TCU has 13. TCU's average player rating is higher than Arizona State's, which means they're bringing in slightly higher rated players, even though they have less commits at the moment. But Kenny Dillingham has some energy behind that program. Rashad Samples, Brian Carrington, 2 very good recruiters on Arizona State staff currently trying to make things happen. And it's interesting to see how they're going to do. You also have Colorado with Coach Prime. But I think locally, in the state, Texas Tech is going to be a really good school to compare themselves to when it comes to TCU over the next few years. And excuse me, I forgot that Rashad Samples left for Oregon, but Brian Carrington still at Arizona State. And I believe Rashad was there last season as a coach. I feel like Texas Tech is a good school for TCU to compare themselves to, though, when it comes to recruiting. Because Tech, I think they understand and early on in this process understood the way college football is changing. They're active in NIL. They have good backing with Matador Club. They were one of the first schools to publicly be like, hey, we're giving everybody this we're giving everybody this kind of base amount of money on the roster, and then they'll have opportunities for incentives and to build on that with different endorsement deals moving forward. With Joey McGuire and all his high school connections, I just feel like that's a good measuring stick for what TCU can do and the type of school they need to beat on the recruiting trail on a regular basis. So they land Logan Schram from Bernie. And when you watch Logan's tape, the things that stood out to me, he's got a good understanding of where to place his body in regards to where the play is going. What I mean by that is there were multiple plays on his huddle film where they're running to the edge, like straight to the sideline, around the tackle, outside the tackle box. And he did a great job of getting that first outside step, putting his helmet on the outside shoulder of that D lineman and turning them and hooking them so they had no ability to set the edge and to keep outside leverage and string that play out. Either get out their block and make the play themselves or string that play out so the reinforcements could come in and make a play behind the line of scrimmage or out the line of scrimmage, because the running back ball carrier is just running east and west the whole time. That ball carrier was able to get around Logan because he positioned himself in a way where that D lineman was hooked inside and couldn't make a play. He's got that kind of nasty streak you want for an O-lineman where he's driving people back, falling on top of them. One move that was very prevalent when you watched him, he was really adept at just grabbing guys and throwing them, especially in pass protection. Like he would engage for a little bit and then just completely overpower them. Now, can you do that on a consistent basis at the next level? I have some skepticism. I mean, I think he'll continue to have to work on footwork, hand placement, staying in front of guys, being able to reset his kind of base and his feet and not allow those edge rushers to push him back. But that physicality was on full display because when he engaged and grabbed somebody by the pads, like he was throwing them around. And I mean, the athleticism looks like it's there. The tape I watched, Bernie wasn't running like a lot of counters, different plays where he would be pulling around and going to the next level, but looked like he got to the second level well, whether it was on kind of a down block or just getting to a linebacker on certain plays. He wasn't really getting beat by speed rushers that I saw. So I think this is a really good pickup. First offensive line commit for this 2025 class, which now stands at 16th in the nation. It feels like the mojo, the momentum is back for TCU on the recruiting trail. You know, weirdly, I think sometimes disappointing seasons can create a sense of urgency that can lead to some big time waves in the recruiting world that next off season. And we saw a couple of years ago, the staff did a really great job closing out that class and bringing in some big time names. And I felt like a lot of that had to do with there were some great games at home against Oklahoma State and Kansas State where they had recruiting weekends and they were able to show, you know, those prospective players like, hey, you get to play in big time moments here at TCU. And then following that national championship appearance, the recruiting wasn't at the level that we thought it could be. And I'm not sure if it was more attention and urgency to the Flying C Club and the NIL arm of this situation, or if it was just coaching staff kind of regrouping, finding the groove again. We know on defense, one thing that's helped a lot seems to be the energy that Andy Avalos and Kim Wilson have brought to the table. Just having a fresh perspective and having a new scheme in the mix, but also that scheme featuring edge rushers, defensive ends that can win one-on-one matchups and trying to put them in situations that's to succeed, being able to sell them on the idea of, hey, if you come to TCU, you can make plays behind the line of scrimmage. You can heat up the quarterback. Like you can make those splash plays that defenses want to be known for. So that's all great. Logan Schram, third highest ranked player in this class. He's a 3-star prospect according to 247 Sports, but he's a composite 4-star, which means if you look at other services, he's got some 4-star ratings. And we'll have to hear from Sonny and the staff later on in the recruiting process to see, okay, do they see him as a guy that can play tackle, that could shift to guard? And maybe they don't really have that in their minds yet. They need to see him on the field, in the weight room, all those types of things. But that will be an intriguing piece of the puzzle here as they continue to try to build this 2025 class before signing day in December. Ty Hawkins is the centerpiece here, the quarterback from San Antonio, who was the first commit of this class and has been locked in for a long time. He'll be competing in the Elite 11 finals here in a few days in Los Angeles as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And some news came out recently, and Ty's been all over on the recruiting circuit. He's been very busy this summer, it seems, at some different camps, some 7-on-7 events. He's got an incredible arm talent. If you have a chance to just kind of poke around, whether it's on Twitter or on the internet, to watch him play, he can make all the throws. I mean, it just jumps off the page when he gets the ball in his hands. His ability to push the ball down the field, make those throws in tight windows, all that is plus when it comes to Ty Hawkins. And he's built a good relationship with this offensive coaching staff. He's been very active on social media, like recruiting other players and being like, hey, come play here. This is the place to be at TCU. On3 has had some conflicting reports about this, but it appears that he is at least interested in taking visits to SMU and to Oregon, which has caused some murmurs, some panic among the TCU faithful. I totally get it. I mean, here's what I'll say. If you're going to recruit big-time players, these types of things can happen. Don't love it. I wish he would shut down all his visits and just say, hey, this is where I want to be. But he's looking around. I think, it will be really tough for me to turn down visits as a rising senior in high school, because I think you get to see really cool parts of the college experience and they roll out the red carpet for you. But I trust what this coaching staff has built with Ty. And, is there a possibility that somebody throws just an obscene amount of money at him and he at least listens to them? Yeah, I think that's a possibility. But he's been locked in at TCU for a while. I think Kendall Briles has worked hard to make sure that Ty understands he's their guy, he's their priority. And, I mean, he's been the only quarterback in this class for a long time. Now, Chris Jimerson from Crowley, he's playing QB in high school, but the assumption is that he'll move to wide receiver or some other position when he gets to TCU in the near future. So I wouldn't sweat too much the fact that Ty is at least kind of entertaining some different opportunities. But it's that time of year where you start to worry about some of the guys you have, because it's hard to get them in the fold, and then it's difficult to hold on to them. Big Easy, one of our frequent listeners, commented on YouTube the other day, and he was like, when Chad Woodfork committed, actually, he was like, okay, now you got to keep him. And that's true. And with the quarterback position, the fascinating thing now is it's not even just getting them to campus. Doing that's one hurdle. And then once they're there, you have to continue to find ways to make sure they know they're valued and that there's a path to playing time, because if you don't, they could leave in the transfer portal. And this is a good problem to have. I mean, the alternative is honestly what we saw last year, where when Chandler Morris went down, thankfully, I think Josh Hoover handled it better than a lot of us expected, but there was nobody behind Josh. But we're looking at a situation in a couple of years where you could potentially have Josh Hoover, Haas Haney, and Ty Hawkins all on campus. All three of them are not going to play. So whoever ends up being the odd man out, then you have to work hard to make sure they know, okay, we want to have you here. We like, we like you. We value your talent, but somebody's going to win this competition. And that's part of the new world when it comes to college football and college athletics. When we come back, a couple more recruiting notes that I want to touch on. All that and more next. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Perfect sponsor for today, because we're talking about recruiting the 2025 class. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. If you're in the business of recruiting for your business, especially your small business, and you're like, man, I don't have time to search through all these resumes and try to find the right candidate. I don't have great references for these people. Use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn is where people go to find work. There are billions, literally billions of professionals on LinkedIn. Most people find a qualified candidate within 24 hours, and they have simple screening questions and tools that will help you weed out the applications and find the people that are the right fit for your business. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Again, that's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. 86% of small businesses love and use LinkedIn on a normal basis. If you are in the business of hiring, LinkedIn is the way to go. It's the leader in talent evaluation, finding the right job and the right people for your business. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Some more recruiting notes as we continue here on Locked On Horned Frogs. So Keelan Abrams, who is one of the commits for TCU's 2025 class, had an insane season last year at DeSoto. I can't get over the numbers that he put up as an outside linebacker at DeSoto last season. 21 sacks, 90 tackles, 1 interception, was first team all district 11-6A, which is one of the best districts in the state of Texas. Went up against great competition each and every week and just dominated. Super excited to have him as part of this class. He was on an official visit this past weekend. Sam Haley was also there. Ken Wilson, Andy Avalos doing a great job bringing in linebackers, your more traditional middle linebackers like Sam Haley, like Dylan Arkansas, but also edge rushers that'll be playing that new stud linebacker position. Keelan Abrams is one of those guys. And Keelan took to social media on Twitter the other day, and he tagged Tyron Polley Jr., a safety who's playing his high school ball at Duncanville, and a couple of the eyeball emojis and then a frog emoji, and there was a gif of Super Frog throwing up the Go Frogs to the crowd, which made some people wonder, all right, is Tyron Polley Jr. the next commit for TCU's class? He's currently committed to SMU. 5'10", 180 pounds, a safety, played at Duncanville. One thing we know about Duncanville, they know defense. Physical, get after you, play defense at super high level. Watching some of his tape today, great athleticism, really good instincts, physicality, ball skills, got interceptions, was also just lighting people up, running down screens, going sideline to sideline. He's a 3-star prospect. It would be pretty awesome to flip an SMU player if the Frogs could do that. But the momentum continues for TCU on the recruiting trail, especially defensively, at getting playmakers who can make things happen. I think one really cool thing about Andy Avalos taking over is you would assume that with his background as head coach back in the day, he's got a great feel for what type of players fit what he's doing scheme-wise, and now he can allocate more resources to just the defense, both schematically, but also building a roster and building a talent pool that will be super effective moving forward. So Tyron Polley Jr., a name to watch, the SMU commit, safety, plays at Duncanville. Just keep that in mind. Also, Jeremy Clark reporting today that Jared Martin had a great time on his visit. He was also one of the many official visitors at this last kind of official visit bonanza that happened this past weekend. And Jared's from California, 6'3", 210 pounds, edge rusher. He's the 26th ranked edge rusher in the nation. He's got a lot of offers. He's currently really interested in Arizona State, Arizona, and Cal, among others. He said it was amazing. Best visit I've been on. The environment, the culture, and the people really stood out to me. Again, those quotes courtesy of Jeremy Clark, who covers the Frogs for Horned Frog Blitz, 247 website. And watching some of Martin's tapes, this fits in with a Keelan Abrams type of player, a lot of the different guys that they've been chasing after so far this offseason. He's more of a stand-up edge rusher, but another super athletic, twitchy guy who can get after the quarterback. And if there's one thing we know in today's world of football, you cannot have enough pass rushers. And I'm super excited to see what TCU does with this new position and these new possibilities they have. Is Marcel Brooks going to be a guy that emerges as a dude who can cause havoc and make things happen? Cooper McDonald coming over as someone who's played in a similar position at San Diego State, Jonathan Bax. If the list goes on of athletes who could make things happen for this TCU defense, and Jared Martin, another player kind of in that same mold as a big-time pass rusher. So super exciting times for TCU on the recruiting trail. So Jared Martin, the edge rusher from California. I also like this because I've said this before, but as much as I love Texas high school football, I mean, you can't beat it from a coaching perspective, the types of players they put out on a year-in, year-out basis, and you're right there in Dallas-Fort Worth where there's just a ton of athletes. I do think TCU could really benefit from expanding their reach a little bit. Even though you can build a great team just within the confines of your backyard, I think it's awesome that they're looking at, Sam Haley's from Tennessee. You got Jared Martin potentially from California. And then you can still focus on those DFW guys like Tyron Polley Jr., who is from Duncanville. You can have, both of those types of players coming together in these recruiting classes. And I think that's the best way to go about it, especially moving forward as recruiting just everywhere becomes more of a nationwide situation. We'll close things up when we come back. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. All right, before we go, I want to get to some audience reaction on at the end of last week. I asked you guys a question. What are you most optimistic about? Which team are you most optimistic about moving forward for TCU athletics? And I used what I think we'd call kind of the big four sports in football, men's basketball, baseball, and then women's hoops. And you guys had some thoughts in the comment section. Tyler says a great question. He says he's going to say football, but he loves what's happening in basketball. TCU has a football team that could go 8-4 with some breaks, or 4-8 with few injuries. Dykes has some really nice talent in the pipeline. If they can hold on to Ty Hawkins, they'll have two of the most talented spread quarterbacks in the country. Some good skill players in both lines have incoming talent. He also really likes basketball. The improvement has been outstanding. TCU needs to win a Sweet 16 game to break out of the 1 or 2 win tourney category. That still seems like a bridge too far. Yeah, I mean, football-wise, I think this is a huge year. I'm predicting 8-4. I feel like that's a big possibility. I think it could be better if some things break the right way. I feel like you're right. They are a few injuries away from maybe another disappointing season. But I believe Sonny needs to show like proof of concept this year by putting together a good season. And I do think they're working hard on the recruiting trail to get this roster to a better place moving forward. And I mean, that's the key anywhere and everywhere you go. You got to have that talent. And I like that TCU seems to be focusing on the trenches and they're bringing in players that can hold their own up front, because that's the best way to win football games and to foundationally build your team. Richard says the football program has the most upside to him due to the down year and the changes they made in the offseason. They need to find a way to break from one-score games in the next couple of seasons and become the class of the Big 12. Yeah, I mean, those close games, they can go one way or the other, right? And so we saw both ends of that spectrum over the past few seasons. They really regressed to the mean in a huge way. Not even to the mean. I mean, the pendulum totally flipped the other direction. But you'd love to win some games more comfortably. And hopefully with more talent on the roster, that'll be what they build to moving forward. Big Easy said he thinks women's basketball is most upside right now. Football is next. In the next 2 years, he thinks he'll be in the 10-win category again. He respects what Dixon's done, but he feels like he reached his ceiling. Expectations need to improve among the athletic director and the fan base. Yeah, I get that, and I totally understand where you're coming from with Jamie. They got to get past this one-and-done situation in the tournament. I mean, they've won a few games and made it to the second round, but I feel like people understand what I'm saying. And then football-wise, I think they're trying to build something special here, and putting together a good season and gaining some momentum could be a big aspect of that moving forward. That'll do it for Locked On Horned Frogs today. We'll be back tomorrow. It's your team. We do it here every day.